And now to the conflict in Syria. Government warplanes bombed a rebel headquarters near the Turkish border today, reportedly missing their target, but sending hundreds of Syrians fleeing. Margaret Warner has been on a reporting trip to the region. In her third and final story, she examines how the Syrian civil war has heightened tensions between Turkey and its ethnic Kurd population.
Just 25 miles from Aleppo, which is being pounded into dust by Bashar al-Assad's air force, the Syrian town of Afrin is a picture of domestic tranquility. But that's because it's being run by a relatively unknown player in Syria's civil war, Syrian Kurds. They fly a banned Kurdish flag in a symbol of defiance and pride. The Kurds took control of the town after the government's overstretched ground forces withdrew earlier this year. The Kurds quickly demolished the regime's jailhouse. But much of life here seems normal. Olive groves are being tended, and there's a new school for women who were denied education before.
There are three forces in Syria: the regime force, the Free Army Force, and we became the third line in this struggle.
Atouf Abdo heads the new People's Council in Afrin.
Every community has its own destiny now. So as a free city, we're implementing self-government. Throughout Syria, the people are getting nearer to freedom and to democracy.
The world's estimated 30 million ethnic Kurds are most concentrated in 4 countries: Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Primarily Muslim, but of different sects, many ethnic Kurds think of themselves as a common nation without a state. In Iraq, Kurds have autonomy in thriving Iraqi Kurdistan. Kurds in Syria are trying to position themselves to do the same. They aren't even granted citizenship in Assad's Syria, but rather than fight Assad's troops, they are taking their place in northern towns near the 500-mile border with Turkey when government forces depart to focus elsewhere. The assertiveness of Syria's Kurds is causing anxiety in Turkey. Tens of thousands of Turkish citizens, Kurd and non-Kurd alike, have been killed in 3 decades of an insurgency for independence waged by Turkey's outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK. PKK terror attacks began trending up again last year, shortly after Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on Syrian President Assad to step down. The growing power of the Syrian militia, close allies of the PKK, is exacerbating a most sensitive issue in Turkey, says Kamal Karishi, a political scientist at Bogazici University in Istanbul.
There is a feeling on the part of the public especially that the northeastern parts of Syria that is heavily populated by Kurds obtained a kind of de facto autonomy has led to the Turkish public to believe that there is a threat emanating from this particular area.
One of the Syrian areas taken over by the Kurds, the city of Qamishli, just across from its former half in Turkey, Nusaybin. Millions of Kurds in Turkey have assimilated into Turkish society, but not in southeastern enclaves like here in Nusaybin. And the fact that Syrian Kurds are now in partial control of cities like Qamishli just across the border is stirring a yearning for similar liberties among many Kurds here. Nusaybin is almost entirely Kurdish. A Kurdish-language newspaper is sold openly, and the Turkish papers feature news about the jailed leader of the PKK, Abdullah Öcalan. But many Kurds here told us they feel marginalized.
We have no life. We are having a hard time here. We are Kurds. The Turks and Arabs don't accept us here.
Kurds complained bitterly about the Turkish government closing the border crossing to the Syrian side about a year ago. They can't visit their Syrian relatives, and Kurdish shopkeepers say their business is down 70% or more. So food seller Mahmoud Shimshek says he's thrilled to see the Syrian Kurds taking over in their cities.
We are happy about this.
Why?
We are happy because they are our brothers. We are the same people. Of course, we would be happy about this.
Tea wholesaler Ali Sino went even further.
We wish and we hope that's going to happen, that the Kurds get completely free on the other side.
And how about on this side someday?
Of course, those on this side should get free too. They have divided us into 4 countries, and one day we'll come and get into one country together.
That kind of separatist talk stirs deep fears among non-Kurd Turks, as we heard in the southeastern city of Mardin, just 30 miles away.
If they get their freedom over there, of course they will create problems for Turkey, create a headache for Turkey.
And there's also the more immediate security threat posed by the growing PKK attacks inside Turkey, said Ibrahim Fide, who runs the Mardin provincial office of Prime Minister Erdogan's ruling Justice and Development Party.
For sure, Syria is actually supporting the PKK, and that's also made the PKK attacks increase.
Why do you think Assad's trying to support the PKK?
I can't say why they help the PKK. You should ask them. We don't know exactly how this happens, but even letting the PKK cross over and stay there, that's already support.
Fide said the renewed PKK attacks are especially upsetting after what he says have been several years of greater freedoms for Kurds.
There is no pressure on the Kurds on expressing their language and their culture. There are not any problems between different ethnicities. The different nations all live together in peace. We call this one nation together.
The Kurds have had big pain. They have suffered a lot in this area.
Back in Nusaybin, Mayor Ayşe Gökhan, a former journalist elected 4 years ago from Turkey's legal Kurdish political party, takes issue with Fide's rosy view. Though her party doesn't espouse Kurdish independence, she greeted us with a hearty welcome to Kurdistan in her office overlooking the Turkey-Syria border.
Kurds were happy when Iraqi Kurdistan became autonomous, and of course after what happened in Syria, Kurds fighting for democratic autonomy there, many Kurdish people here are happy too.
But Gökhan says that does not mean that most of Turkey's Kurds want to carve out independence for themselves.
The Kurds don't want their own country. They don't want to separate from Turkey. They don't want new borders. They just want to have their freedom in their own country, free to have their own language, education. That's what they demand, not to have a separate country.
Reassuring words, seemingly borne out just down the road from the mayor's office at the new Mitani Kurdish Cultural Center.
We have here Kurdish and Turkish books. There is a big demand for reading and learning Kurdish here because children at the school are not allowed to learn Kurdish.
A library of Kurdish books would have been unthinkable a few years ago, yet Center Director Barine Aslan doesn't feel entirely secure.
The government doesn't like us at all, what we are doing here, but so far they have not done anything to us. But they are not happy about the work we're doing here.
Another disquieting note, on the grass out back, as dusk fell in the shadow of the Syrian border, young people were singing in Kurdish. It was an ode to Zilan, dead now 16 years. A folk heroine to some, a terrorist to many. The first female suicide bomber of the PKK.
You can watch Margaret's earlier reports from Syria on our website.